What's up, friends? With the Christmas season close upon us and the tournament scene slowing down a little bit, I think it's a good time to take a look back at the previous 28 weeks of the Pariah Nexus. So sit back, relax, and we'll get right to it. In this video, we're just going to go over all of the Pariah Nexus tournament results, which is encompassing about 28 weeks since it released in June. We're going to look at the overall meta for Pariah Nexus, who's doing good, who's doing bad, and everything that goes with that. And we're also going to look at overall army balance versus the dominating armies of the meta. Alright, and before we get started, we got to hit up the old YouTube pleasantries. If you do find this video useful or you enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps support me and helps support the channel so I can keep bringing you guys videos weekly. Thank you for your support. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at the player numbers for the Pariah Nexus. Alright, so the first 28 weeks of the Pariah Nexus mission pack, we have over 20,400 players, we have over 105,000 games played, and we have the data for 375 different tournaments. First thing we're going to look at is the win percentage by armies. So far we've seen pretty balanced results with over 90% of the armies within Games Workshop's acceptable win rate of 45 to 55%. We do have a few standouts at the top, but they're not very high, only at 53% for Sisters and Thousand Sons and 52% for Space Wolves and Drukhari. Those percentages were definitely from earlier in the mission pack when they were dominating a little bit more than recently. But as far as top numbers go, that's pretty good considering overall balance. Down at the bottom, we have Space Marines and Orks suffering the most. They're definitely one of the most played factions, but they are still down below the acceptable win rate, especially Space Marines, down at 41%. So hopefully we'll see some changes with the latest balance data slate that came out. Hopefully with the moment and everything that goes with Space Marines, they'll be able to bump those numbers up a little bit. But overall, so far, I think for all of Pariah, it's been pretty balanced. There hasn't been one army that ran away with it, and no army is really falling too far behind. Next we're going to look at is player representation. This is the percentage of the player base playing each army, so the higher the number, the more people playing that army. Necrons, Tyranids, and Guard are definitely the most popular armies over the last 28 weeks. Necrons and Tyranids are over 6% player base, and Guard is at 5.8% player base. The average is right around 3.8%, so most of them, they're not double, but they're almost double the average. Down the bottom, we have Genestealer Cults, AdMech, and of course Agents, but they're too new to really worry about them right now. They're never going to have a high player base until it gets sort of sorted out as a full army. Both Genestealer Cult and AdMech, usual suspects at the bottom. They are difficult armies to play, they're expensive, hard to paint, and even with the success that Genestealer Cults has seen recently, their numbers are, overall, their player base is quite low. We do see armies like Orks and Space Marines remain popular at, well above the average of 4.5% roughly each, which is, not surprising considering they're one of the more popular armies, even though their win rate is very low right now. So this is just the numbers for all the factions. So, sometimes percentages are nice, but sometimes just good to look at the numbers and see how many people are actually playing each army. The top 5 armies had over 1,000 people: Necrons, Tyranids, Guard, Space Marines, and Tau. While the bottom 3, especially Imperial Agents, they didn't even make it to 100 people. Didn't even make it to 60. Genestealer Cults and AdMech are both below 400. Even with Genestealer Cults' recent success in the last 8 weeks of just dominating everything, they're still only at 391 players. So definitely one of the least popular armies, but the people who love them, people who play them, can do really well with them. Next thing we're going to look at here is the percentage of players who went XOX1. So this is people who never lost at a tournament or only lost one game. Thousand Sons and Sisters definitely are up at the highest percentage there. They're kind of coasting off the early success through Pariah. They haven't been as dominant lately, with Genestealer Cults just murdering everything lately, and they're climbing up. But with all the changes coming in the previous balance data slate last week, we should see those numbers balance out a little bit. Genestealer Cults definitely got hit pretty hard, so their numbers should start dropping or at least sort of maintain. And then down at the bottom, Imperial Agents and Space Marines, less than 10%. Definitely struggling down there. Lots of people bring Space Marines, but there are very few people who are having success with them. So most people are just 3-2, 2-3. Most people are going 2-3, to be honest. Agents, again, just they're just finding their way. It's hard to really glean anything from that data just yet. But otherwise, across the board, we're seeing a lot of averages. The average is right around 15, and most armies fall within that. So overall, no one's really dominating too much throughout the whole Pariah Nexus. When armies get out of control, GW reins them back in a little bit. So it's nice to see. Now if we can just bump those bottom ones up, we can get everyone more in line, and everything should be a little bit more balanced. And this chart here shows all the 3 stats combined. So this gives us a better idea of who is doing good and how it's sort of correlating to all the different stats. So Genestealer Cults, despite their low numbers, 1.9% of the player base, they have a 50% win rate, which, average, and they have a 20% XOX1 percentage. So, not many people take them to the board, but those people who do bring them are finding a lot of success with them. 20% of people are only losing 1 game or not losing any games. Sisters and Thousand Sons at the top, both at 53% win rate, both over 20% XOX1, and both above the average army representation. So it's not surprising to see Sisters got nerfed. I mean, they got nerfed pretty hard, so we'll see how that turns out. It could be a little rough for them in the next couple weeks as they sort of find their footing. And down the bottom, Orks and Space Marines again, low win percentage, low XOX1 percentage, high army rep. So despite their popularity, people keep bringing them, but they're just struggling to find a success. Now Space Marines did get quite the buff in the last data slate, so hopefully that should help prop them up a bit. Orcs got a little change to their wall, which might help a little bit, but it's hard to say if that's going to be a game changer or not for them. And this is the tournament wins for each army across the entire Pariah Nexus. So the average tournament win should be about 14, right where Space Wolves are. But then we have Guard, Sister, and CSM. They have over 25% of all the tournament wins for all of Pariah, so definitely something that needed a little nerfing. You don't want 3 armies winning a quarter of the games when there's 26 armies, so that's a little unbalanced. And then you look down at the bottom 6 armies, your Demons, Admechs, Chaos Knight, Adeptus Custodes, Leagues of Votann, and Space Marines. They both all had 7 or less. So those are the armies that definitely need a little help. They're doing okay. Most of them have a decent win rate, ignoring Chaos Knights have struggled a bit and Space Marines struggle a bit, but the rest of them have decent win percentages and decent XOX1 percentages, but they just don't have the tools to win and to get past into the top tables, so they're just kind of stuck in those mid boards. Alright, so we're into the review now. Basically, the overall balance was pretty good. Most armies are within acceptable ranges. There's a few outliers, but nothing like the beginning edition where you had Eldari at like 70% win rate or something crazy like that. Tournaments were kind of a little different case, I guess. There's kind of have and have-nots, with the top percentage doing all the work and the bottom percentage doing none of the work in tournament wins. So hopefully they can shift that down a little bit and sort of bring everyone back up to the average. There was major change in the last data slate to struggling armies like Space Marines, so we should hopefully see their numbers brought back up. And there's also major changes done to Genestealers and Sisters, who were performing very well, and hopefully should see them bring back down into the average. Now it's going to hurt Genestealer Cults player numbers. I feel like they only get a lot of players when they're doing well, so if they start to struggle, you see those numbers, I think, drop off quite a bit. I think it's going to be interesting looking ahead to see how the new Grot Mist attachments and the recent balanced data slate sort of shake up the meta in the new year. Everyone's kind of taking a lull over Christmas. There's not many tournaments, and then we're going to come back with everyone's going to come back with all new rules and all new attachments, and then we're going to really see who kind of comes out on top pretty quick here. Within 3 or 4 weeks of the tournament scene starting back up, I'm going to take a look at all the Grot Mist attachments. I'm going to compare how they're all doing to see who sort of won and lost from the Christmas season, and hopefully we'll see most of the armies doing well, but that's what we're going to check out. Alright, thank you for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe if you found this video useful. It really helps support me, support the channel. Once the tournament scene picks back up, I'll be continuing my weekly videos, and I'll be sprinkling some other things in here and there, and maybe look for some more Age of Sigmar stuff if I can get that sorted out. So thank you for your time. I appreciate all your support, and I'll see you next time.